présenter, et je vais le convier pour venir me rejoindre, Dave, s'il veut. Dave, if you please join me on the floor. Avec le parcours de Dave, c'est assez original parce qu'il est dirigeant, c'est un entrepreneur, il a des casquettes justement de responsabilité importante dans le domaine du high-tech. Il est actuellement chairman de Polycom, il est également membre du conseil d'administration de Delta Airlines, la compagnie aérienne, et il est, après avoir été pendant très longtemps Chief Executive Officer de McAfee, désormais Chairman of the Board de FireEye. Ce qui nous a intéressé également dans son expertise, c'est pas uniquement cette logique de praticien des affaires, mais également d'observateur, de conseil avec une distance. On sait qu'il intervient régulièrement dans des enceintes comme le forum de Davos en Suisse, justement sur les problématiques transversales géopolitiques. Et également, il participe au sein d'une entité qui est très spécifique aux États-Unis, qui est le National Security Technology Advisory Council, qui est cette structure de conseil rattachée au président des États-Unis sur les questions de technologie de l'information. On pourrait presque souhaiter qu'une telle entité existe sur le vieux continent, en tout cas dans certains vieux pays, mais d'avoir cette proximité ainsi des dirigeants d'entreprise. Je pense à Eric Schmidt, le patron de Google, qui est effectivement aux côtés capable de transmettre des messages au pouvoir politique avec un éclairage, intéressé sans doute, mais qui a un éclairage sur les réalités de ce monde numérique. Dave va nous présenter sa vision de cette nouvelle forme d'affrontement, de guerre avec les États, avec les entreprises, avec ses collectifs et à partir de son expérience de la sécurité numérique. Thank you very much, Dave. The floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. Did he say good things about me? Thank you. I think that was the first time that I've ever had my bio read. I had no idea what he said. So I apologize. I don't speak French. I'm sorry. I don't even speak English that well. I'm an American, as you can probably tell. And I'm going to try to do my best in about 15 or 20 minutes to give you a little bit of the landscape of the cyber world. As you probably heard from the bio, I'm on the National Security Advisory Council. I was appointed by President Obama 2 years ago, and I've got a chance to see a lot of the world's cyber issues. President and CEO of McAfee, chairman of FireEye, also chairman of Mandiant. I've had now a lot of experience at looking at some of the world's issues. So I sort of have good news, and then I have some bad news, and then I have some good news. So I'm going to start off with some good news, if it's all right. I have now, I guess, 26 years experience in the high-tech world. I drove my car from the East Coast of the United States to Silicon Valley 26 years ago, and I've had a chance to be in big companies. I've had a chance to be in little companies. I had chances to take companies public. I've had a chance to be in the security industry a pretty long time. And I will tell you, this past year or two has been one of the most amazing periods of time, I think, in the world. I think we are in the most exciting time for innovation of technology we've ever seen. And not only do we have one or two major trends, but we have 4 mega trends that are happening in the world today. And I know everybody here from a security point of view and an IT point of view know what I'm talking about. If you think about the big trends, we're seeing just tidal waves of innovation happening. And right now, we're seeing major changes in the worlds of computing that we've never seen before. And for all the security professionals in the room, you know how challenging this might be as well. But just take a look. Major changes in the cloud, SaaS-based applications. We're seeing horizontal platforms for SaaS-based applications, vertical, industry-based application. Everything is cloud-oriented, which means a whole new way of doing technology for enterprises and corporations around the world, which is amazing. This is the first time we've really seen a mega shift in the type of architectures that we have inside organizations. Mobile. Everything has gone mobile. We're seeing so many new changes in the world of mobility at this point in time. I'm sure almost every person in the room has 1 or 2 smartphones. Just think a year or 2 ago, we hardly had any. And the world is exploding when it comes to mobility inside corporations and out. The world of social changed dramatically. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, just about every country in the world has their own social network platforms. billion-plus people networked together in a social way has changed the way we do business in the world. It's pretty amazing, all in a very short period of time. And of course, coming out of that, big data. I know there's been sessions on this here as well, but major trends are occurring in the high-tech world as we speak. And I have a chance to be with a number of venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, quite a few. A lot of money and technology and innovations being poured into the cloud, into mobile, into social, and into big data in ways we've never seen before. Billions and billions and billions of dollars being spent in these 4 areas. So amazing times, really good news. Take a look at some of the numbers. Unprecedented growth and complexity as a result of this. We now have 50 billion devices connected on the internet. 50 billion. That's almost 10 devices for every single human being on the planet. That's pretty amazing. And it's exploding. We're going to see upwards to 1 trillion devices connected on the internet in the next decade or 2. Pretty amazing. Everything we have, from our cars to our refrigerators to just about every part of our house, everything that we have is connected on the internet. Pretty amazing numbers. 4 billion connected people online. So this number continues to grow as well. Maybe that doesn't click as well. Click. Click. Maybe not. So what we're seeing is 4 billion people connected online at this point as well. Nearly 4 out of 5 people on the planet are now online, have an identity online, are creating identities that allow us to access them online. We now have 25 million applications, 25 million applications that have been developed for smartphones, for architectures, for the web, and for the internet. So these numbers are daunting, 4 trillion gigabytes of data. Pretty amazing complexity, pretty amazing unprecedented growth in the world today. So what are we finding out about this? We have to reimagine just about everything we do in the world. I don't know how many of you ever heard of a woman named Mary Meeker. She's an analyst with Kleiner Perkins, one of the leading Silicon Valley. She does an amazing presentation around reimagining the world. Everything we read, how we read, from magazines to books, how we learn, how we write, how we share, how we communicate, how we collaborate, has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. How we train people, how we hire people have changed dramatically. Almost every industry is seeing revolutionary changes in the way they do business today. So what's the downside to all of this? The bad news? The world of security is getting harder and harder. The world of security has gotten nearly impossible from my standpoint. And I ran a multi-billion-dollar global security company. Why is that? Because we're seeing so many changes in the world. Capitalism, lack of governance, inadequate policies, major technologies not working, nationalism all over the world. All these innovations like the cloud and mobile and social and big data has presented huge vulnerabilities in the architectures of every corporation in the world. As a result, the world of threats is up 400% just in the category called advanced threats, 400% year over year. On top of that, we saw an exponential change in the amount of malware we see of just over the last 3 years. Exponential. At McAfee, we tracked about 3 million pieces of bad malware or bad files, 3 million. Today, we track 80 million. 3 million to 80 million in 3 years. And as security professionals, you all know that's a pretty daunting task for the current models that are out in the market. So we have to do different things. And the types of attacks that we're seeing is very bad news, in my opinion. I don't know how many of you heard of an attack called Aurora. Does that name ring a bell? Aurora? In 2009, Google went to the Wall Street Journal and basically said that they were exposed on their internal systems by a national organization. And as a result, 150 companies, high-tech companies, were breached. And most of the breaches occurred in the source code of their products. What was that all about? Vulnerability research. The ability to put malware into products such that they could later breach organizations. And what are we seeing? Just this past week, Adobe digitally signed certificates into their products from adversaries attacking infrastructure through known good sources. So the attacks are lingering throughout the world. We're tracking somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 countries globally from the United States perspective that are what we consider armed for cyber warfare, which means multi-millions of dollars spent on research and development in the world of cyber. In fact, I just was participating with a number of banks this past week on the Iranian DOS attacks. Some of you probably know the denial of service attacks the Iranian, what's called their CUD intelligence organizations, put forth on the American banking infrastructure. A small group of cyber researchers in Iran were able to bring down the largest banks in America. Pretty amazing times. And we're seeing repeated offenses of this, one after another after another. So pretty interesting days when we've got amazing innovation occurring, amazing nationalism, cyber warfare and weaponry being created, and amazing holes. And the result, 95% of all the companies, in my opinion and the opinion of others, are compromised today as we stand here right now. 95% of the companies in this organization, in this room, are compromised, which means they're infected with a system, something that's enabling data exfiltration and extraction of information out of the corporations here, and they don't know it. So it's an interesting world where we have $25 billion a year security industry, and 95% of the companies are compromised. That's the state of the union. That's the bad news. That's the reality of what we are in today. The $25 billion spent in security every year isn't working. We're having difficulty stopping the bad guys. That's the reality. Why is that? The adversaries have more resources than the security companies do. So it's very challenging for the security companies to keep up with the attacks that are occurring in the architectures today. So kind of a bad news situation and good news at the same time. So what are we going to do about it? Are these slides catching up to me now? There you go. I thought I was clicking. He told me I was clicking. Anyways, you get a little sense. Huge holes in the architecture, a lot of compromises happening, and a very big problem at hand. And of course, every country around the world is trying to stop this, every corporation, and we've got to figure out ways to kind of get better at this. So we need to figure out how to reimagine another thing, and I think that's security. We need to start to think about what we can do to essentially solve some of these threats that we're seeing in the world today. So how do we do that? What I call the 4 T's, the letter T in English. The first T is around teamwork. We need communities to partner together in order to stop the attacks. I thought there was a great illustration last week with the Iranian DOS attacks. The American banking infrastructure, within about 2 hours, was able to notify one another and stop the attack. The attack happened again the next day. They could do it within an hour. By being able to work together as a community, they were able to stop these attacks much quicker. But we need to go global with these types of architectures. We need governments to work together to be able to solve it. Take a guess how many sites, websites are created every month that were designed just for malicious activity. 2 million. There's 2 million websites created every month that basically were designed for one purpose and acquired for one purpose, attacking somebody else's infrastructure. So we have a governance problem around the governments in the world. We don't know how to govern the internet. We allow capitalism to get in the way of being able to govern the internet. Now try to go out and buy a gun or a fishing permit or get a driver's license. There's a huge background check on everything you do in that world. Why don't we have the similar processes for things like the internet? We don't have that. There's no global governing community to resolve some of these types of architectural issues we have. And we need to figure out how to do that through teamwork. The second T, I call it, is testing. Do a much better job testing products that we buy. In fact, a lot of the supply chains in the world are compromised before you even get the product. And that's a fact. We're seeing now a lot of the attacks that are perpetrated, they're actually attacked because the product that was built was already vulnerable before you even bought it. So how do we create better testing models, global testing standards? We've done it in other industries. In America, there's what's called OSHA, It's a safety and hazard for driving cars, seat belts and safety belts. We've created legislation and agencies to govern other parts of the industry, but we haven't in the world of cyber. We need to be thinking differently in order to solve some of these problems. So what do we have to do? We have to continue to change the way in which we do things. And I think this is what's really interesting. Finally, the slides caught up. But you got these types of T's that I'm talking about that really help us solve the world and problem. The other big thing is training. In my opinion, we have to do a better job training the employees of our corporations. And what do I mean by that? Training to me is if I sent an email to everybody here after the conference was over, and I said, hey, take a look at my presentation because you didn't get to see it, you would all respond to an email from me most likely, but don't open the attachment. Educating people that most of the malware is done through what's called spear phishing. So how to teach employees common sense around how not to compromise the corporation. Web pages that have web links are the primary causes for a lot of the issues that we're seeing in the world of security. So we got to do a better job training, better job testing, get a better job with teamwork, and then, of course, at least from my perspective, we have a lot of good news coming in the technology front as well. And there's a lot of amazing technology companies upstairs at the exhibit that I really think are interesting. Of course, if you look at some of them, I'm participating in that have been funded. But FireEye is a great example of this. Non-signature based, using virtual machines to detonate applications in a hypervisor. Some of you are technical, you know what I'm saying. But the ability to not use a signature or blacklisting model to look at application behavior and look for anomalies and leverage the cloud to do it. What's the result? These newer technologies have nearly 100% detection rates and nearly 0 false positives. Pretty amazing statement. So next generation technology has to be the way we move forward to solve some of the problems that are existing. Solera is another great example of a company, forensics-based tool. Video cameras at every network angle, looking at analysis of big data across the network, figuring out ways to resolve it. And there's a bunch of other wonderful companies, Palo Alto Networks, next generation firewalls, Mandiant, and a few others to take a look at up in the area. But it's going to require not just product, but people and processes to resolve some of these things. So anyway, I hope you were able to follow me in English okay, and sorry for the slides.